Abstract. Aurora Soleil is a talented artifact student with a simple plan. Graduate, avoid her eccentric landlady and never get involved with the aristocracy. That plan melts instantly when she is blackmailed by a high-maintenance noblewoman into renovating a frozen, abandoned mansion in 48 hours. The owner? The elusive and terrifying ice dragon, Duke Winter. Between a magical mirror with an attitude problem, a box of wasabi-infused truffles, and a magical intoxication that leads to a very spicy misunderstanding, Avi realizes that heating up a cold dragon's heart might be the most dangerous and delicious. The ice dragon, Duke Winter, was currently engaged in his favorite activity, absolute, frozen silence. He sat in his high-backed armchair, a glass of chilled nectar in hand, staring out at the snow-capped peaks of his mountain estate. The peace was exquisite. It was perfect. It was also, unfortunately, about to be shattered. On the mahogany table, a silver hand mirror began to vibrate violently. This was not just any mirror. It was a Class A communication artifact imbued with a personality so grating that Frost had named it Chatterbox. Incoming! Incoming! The mirror shrieked, its silver surface rippling like a disturbed pond. It's the big boss. The crowned cranium. Pick up, Frosty, or he'll send the royal guard to chip you out of the ice. Frost groaned, the sound rumbling deep in his chest like shifting tectonic plates. He swiped a hand over the glass. Accept. The face of King Theodore III, ruler of Nordgar, materialized in the glass. The king did not look happy. His mustache was twitching, a sure sign of impending doom for whoever was on the other end of the line. Frost, the king barked, skipping pleasantries. I am looking at the guest list for the Ball of Ice Sparks, and I see a glaring omission. My pen ran out of ink. Frost suggested dryly, taking a sip of his nectar. You are testing my patience, Duke, Theodore growled. You have avoided court for 3 years. The council is whispering. They say you've gone feral. They say you're hoarding gold and eating sheep. I need you in the capital. Specifically, I demand you attend the ball and, finally, present your future duchess to society. Frost nearly choked on his drink. Your Majesty, with all due respect, my aura is currently unstable. It's the season. My scales are itching. I'm molting. It's very unsightly. I would hate to shed dandruff on the palace carpets. Nice try, Theodore said, unimpressed. I've known you since you were a hatchling. You molted last month. You have 48 hours to get to the capital. And you will not be staying in a hotel. You will reside in your family's town estate, the Crystal Mansion. Frost stiffened. The Crystal Mansion? It's been abandoned for a decade. It's a block of ice. It's uninhabitable. Then fix it, the king declared, his tone leaving no room for argument. And find a wife, Frost. Or I will assign one to you. End of transmission. The mirror went dark, then immediately lit up with a smug, smiley face. Ooh, busted, Chatterbox chirped. Looks like someone needs a date. Should I download Dragon Mingle for you? Shut up, Frost muttered, standing up. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. He had to go to the capital. He had to open the Crystal Mansion. And worst of all, he had to dodge a parade of power-hungry debutantes. 300 miles away, in the bustling capital city of Nordgar, Aurora, Avi Soleil was currently performing a tactical stealth operation. Avi, a final-year student of artifact magic, held her boots in one hand and crept down the hallway of her boarding house in her socks. She held her breath. To her left was the door of doom, the residence of her landlady, Madame Zuzu. Madame Zuzu was a kind soul, but she possessed an obsession with divination that bordered on mania. If she caught Avi, it would mean at least an hour of tea leaf reading or crystal ball gazing.
Step, step, squeak.
Avi froze. The floorboard had betrayed her. The door to the left flew open with supernatural speed, accompanied by a waft of heavy sandalwood incense and lavender. Aurora. Madame Zuzu cried out, her numerous beaded necklaces clinking together. She was a short, round woman draped in 7 layers of shawls. Trying to sneak past destiny? The spirits told me you were tiptoeing. I'm just late for the library, Madame Zuzu, Abby pleaded, clutching her boots. The library can wait. The cosmos cannot. Zuzu grabbed Avi's wrist with a grip of iron and dragged her into the apartment. The room was a hazy den of mysticism. Velvet drapes covered the windows, and every surface was covered in candles. Zuzu pushed Avi into a chair and slapped a deck of cards onto the table. The Tarot of Fate, Zuzu whispered, her eyes widening. I had a vision during my morning meditation. A great permafrost is coming for you, my child. It's winter, Zuzu. Permafrost is just the weather forecast. Abby sighed, resigning herself to her fate. Silence. Zuzu began flipping cards. The Tower, destruction. The Hanging Man, sacrifice. And finally, she flipped the last card with a dramatic flourish. Abby leaned in, expecting to see a grim reaper or a skeleton. Instead, the card depicted a strikingly handsome man with hair like spun silver and eyes of an unnaturally bright blue. The King of Swords? Abby asked. No, Zuzu hissed. Look closer at the eyes. They are the color of a frozen ocean. This is not death, Aurora. This is him. Abby squinted at the card. He looks arrogant. Probably spends more on hair products than I do on tuition. See that sneer? That's the sneer of a man who's never had to wait in line for coffee. He is your destiny, Zuzu insisted, thumping the table. My destiny is to pass my artifice exams and get a job that pays actual money, Abby said, snatching her wrist back. Thanks for the warning about the great permafrost, Zuzu. I'll wear an extra scarf. She grabbed her boots and bolted before the landlady could bring out the tea leaves. 30 minutes later, Abby was safe in the sanctuary of the university library. She slid into a chair at a secluded table tucked behind the History of Goblins section. 2 girls were already there, waiting for her. You're late, Mimi whispered loudly. Mimi was a fire mage with bright red hair and a personality to match. Next to her was Lolo, a genius jewelry crafter who is currently polishing a monocle. Zuzu, Abby said simply, dropping her bag. Ah, said Lolo. Did she predict you'd marry a goblin king this time? No, a blonde guy with frozen ocean eyes. Abby rolled her eyes. Apparently, I'm facing a great permafrost. Mimi gasped and slammed a newspaper onto the table. It was the fresh edition of the Capital Herald. Frozen ocean eyes? Abby, look. It's literally him. Abby looked down. Taking up half the front page was a moving magical photograph of Duke Frostowinter. He was looking away from the camera, looking bored and devastatingly handsome. The headline screamed, "The Ice Dragon returns. Winter is coming to the ball." That's the guy from the card, Abby admitted, feeling a strange shiver that had nothing to do with the drafty library. He's the dream, Mimi swooned, poking the moving picture. Duke Frost. Rich, powerful, a dragon shifter, and totally emotionally unavailable. He's exactly your type, Abby. My type is men who don't exist in fiction books, Abby corrected. Besides, look at him. He looks like he'd freeze you solid if you breathed too loud. I prefer men who are warmer and less likely to eat me. He doesn't eat people, Lolo corrected, adjusting her monocle. Though rumor has it he once froze a tailor for getting his inseam wrong. Charming, Abby said. Anyway, can we focus? The Anonymous Dragon Lovers Club is now in session, but I actually need to study for.
Buzz, buzz, buzz.
Avi's pocket vibrated. She pulled out her standard-issue student communication stone. It was glowing red. Oh, Mimi said. Red light. That's the dean's office. Abby answered. Hello. Cadet Soleil. The voice of Rector Grom, a thunder mage with a voice like a sonic boom, echoed through the quiet library. Dean's office.
Now.
Your specific talents in rapid artifact reconfiguration are required. We have a VIP client, but I have a lecture on runic stability in 10 minutes. Forget the lecture. If you pull this off, I'll give you an automatic outstanding for the semester. Move. Avi arrived at the dean's office breathless. Inside, Rector Grom was sweating. This was unusual, as Grom usually made other people sweat. Sitting in the guest chair was a woman who looked like an explosion in a cupcake factory. She wore a dress of shocking pink silk, a hat adorned with feathers from at least 3 endangered species, and held a handkerchief to her nose as if the air in the university smelled of peasant.
Ah, the student, the woman said.
Her voice was high-pitched and nasal, capable of cracking glass. She looks small. Can she lift a hammer? Lady Beatrice von Gluck, Rector Grom said, his smile tight and terrified. This is Aurora Soleil, top of her class in structural enchantment and quick-fix artifice. Avi, Lady Beatrice, is a very important patron of the arts, and the king's second cousin twice removed. Third cousin, Beatrice corrected sharply. And I am in a crisis. A catastrophe. She stood up, towering over Avi in her high heels. I am to be the hostess of the season. My fiancé, well, he doesn't know he's my fiancé yet, but he will, is arriving in the capital. He is staying at his townhouse, the Crystal Mansion. I went to inspect it this morning, and it is a disaster.
Dust.
Cobwebs. And it is so cold my poodle turned into a popsicle. The Crystal Mansion? Avi asked. Isn't that the dragon's estate? Yes, yes, Duke Frost. Beatrice waved her hand dismissively. He is returning, and I intend to welcome him with a perfectly renovated home. I need it cleaned, warmed, decorated, and furnished by the time he arrives. Okay, Avi said, pulling out a notepad. And when does he arrive? Beatrice checked her diamond-encrusted watch. In 48 hours. Avi dropped her notepad. 2 days? To renovate a magical mansion that's been abandoned for years? That's impossible. You need a team of 20 master mages, not one student. I don't want a team, Beatrice shrieked. I want secrecy. If the tabloids find out I'm preparing his house, the surprise is ruined. Rector Grom said you were a prodigy. Are you refusing? Because if you refuse, I will ensure the king hears about the incompetence of this university. Funding cuts, expulsions. She let the threat hang in the air. Rector Grom looked at Avi with pleading eyes. Please, he mouthed. Save me. Avi gritted her teeth. An automatic outstanding, and saving the school versus a screaming noblewoman. I'll do it, but I need a budget and access. Here. Beatrice threw a heavy bag of gold on the desk. And here is a communication mirror, so I can monitor you. She handed Avi a sleek, gold-rimmed mirror. This is a twin-link artifact, Beatrice explained. I have the other one. Don't break it. As Beatrice swept out of the room in a cloud of cloying perfume, the mirror in Avi's hand lit up. Text scrolled across the surface. Warning. User Beatrice is a Category 5 narcissist. I am Gossip, your AI assistant. I suggest we drink heavily. Avi stared at the mirror.
Great.
Even the inanimate objects are cynical. Avi left the administration building in a daze. 2 days. She was going to die of exhaustion. She stepped off the curb, her mind racing with floor plans and heating spells, and didn't hear the hum of the engine. Look out. A magical scooter, moving way too fast for a pedestrian zone, whipped around the corner. Avi froze, a deer in the headlights. Suddenly, an arm like a steel band wrapped around her waist. She was yanked backward with such force that the air left her lungs. She slammed into a chest that felt as hard as granite and surprisingly cool to the touch. The scooter zoomed past, the driver yelling an apology. Avi gasped, looking up. And up. The man holding her was tall. Extremely tall. He wore a heavy charcoal coat with a high collar, but what caught her attention was his face. Strong jaw, straight nose, and hair the color of moonlight. But it was the eyes that stopped her heart. They were a piercing, luminous blue. Frozen ocean. Are you trying to shorten your lifespan, or is jaywalking a hobby? The stranger asked. His voice was deep, a rich baritone that vibrated against her back. Avi blinked, her brain short-circuiting. It was him. The guy from the card. The guy from the newspaper. Scooter, she stammered eloquently. He looked down at her, his expression unreadable, though there was a flicker of something in those icy depths. He didn't let go immediately. For a second, Avi felt a strange sensation, like static electricity dancing between them, a magnetic pull that made her want to lean closer. "Be more careful," he said, abruptly releasing her and stepping back. He adjusted his gloves. The city is dangerous for those who dream while walking. Before Avi could say thank you or hey, aren't you the Duke, he turned and vanished into the crowd, moving with a predator's grace. Avi stood there on the sidewalk, touching her waist where his arm had been. She was trembling, and it wasn't from the cold. "Okay, Zuzu," she whispered to the air. "1 point for you." Frost walked away quickly, his heart hammering a rhythm he didn't appreciate. What was that? When he had touched the girl, he had felt a spark. Not just a static shock, but a resonance. His inner dragon, usually asleep or grumpy, had lifted its head and rumbled. "Mine? No," Frost muttered to himself. "Not yours. Not anyone's. I am here for business." He marched toward the royal palace. The audience with King Theodore was short and painful.
Frost.
The king beamed. "You made good time." "I flew," Frost said shortly.
Good.
"Now about the wife situation. I have a suggestion. My cousin's niece, Lady Beatrice von Gluck. She is spirited, wealthy, and she seems very eager to merge your bloodlines." Frost felt his left eye twitch. He knew Beatrice. He had met her once at a gala 5 years ago. She had spent 40 minutes talking about her collection of porcelain cats. "I will take it under advisement," Frost lied. "She is currently in the city," the king hinted. "Perhaps you should pay her a visit? Or she might pay you one. I believe she asked for the keys to your mansion earlier to tidy up." Frost went pale. "She has keys? To my house. I gave them to her," the king said cheerfully. "Consider it a push in the right direction." Frost turned on his heel and stormed out of the throne room. This was an act of war. He needed a weapon. Not a sword, but something to deter an unwanted suitor. As he walked through the high-end shopping district, he spotted a luxury confectionery, the Gilded Truffle. An idea, dark and petty, formed in his mind. He entered the shop. "I need your most exclusive chocolates," he told the chocolatier. "And I need a special custom filling." "Anything for the Duke," the shopkeeper bowed. "Caramel?"
Ganache.
"Wasabi," Frost said deadpan. "Concentrated wasabi. And do you have those lollipops made with dragon chili? The ones that make steam come out of your ears." "The Dragon's Breath series?" "Yes, but they are for pranksters, Your Grace." "Perfect. Pack a box. Make it look romantic." If Beatrice wanted to consume his life, she could start by consuming a nuclear-grade pepper. Frost arrived at the Crystal Mansion an hour later. It was a magnificent structure of pale stone and glass, but it looked dead. Dark windows, overgrown ivy frozen in time.
Or it was dead.
Now there were construction golems hauling furniture out the front door. "Careful with that divan," a screeching voice pierced the air. "It's too beige. Burn it." Frost winced. He walked up the steps. Beatrice was standing in the foyer, wearing a hard hat over her feathers. "Duke Frost," she squealed when she saw him. She lunged for a hug. Frost sidestepped smoothly. "Lady Beatrice, what are you doing to my house?" "I am nesting," she beamed. "Making it livable for us. I'm thinking of painting this hall pink. A nice, violent salmon pink." Frost felt physically ill. "Beatrice, you are too kind. But you look famished from all this work." He produced the gold-wrapped box of truffles.
A gift.
"From the mountains." Beatrice's eyes lit up.
Oh.
"You brought me chocolates? You do care." She tore open the box and popped a large, dark truffle into her mouth before he could say a word. She chewed. Frost watched, counting down. 3, 2, 1. Beatrice's eyes bulged. Her face went from pale to beet red. She stopped chewing. Tears welled up in her eyes. The wasabi hit her sinuses like a sledgehammer. She wheezed, her voice strangled. She swallowed, coughing violently. She couldn't admit it was awful. She wanted to marry him. She had to swallow the pain. Its cough spicy, passionate, just like wheeze you. I'm glad you like them, Frost said, his face a mask of polite concern. Have another? No, she croaked. I mean, I must save them. They are too precious. She grabbed his arm, her grip surprisingly strong for someone currently dying of capsaicin poisoning. You must take me to dinner.
Now.
To Stardust. I need water. I mean wine. She dragged him out the door. Frost looked back at his house, praying the pink paint threat was a bluff. Dinner at Stardust was a nightmare. Beatrice spent the entire time chugging water and talking about wedding venues. She insisted on a photo for the society pages. Smile, Frosty, she chirped, leaning into him while a photographer flashed a blinding light in his face. Excuse me, Frost said, standing up abruptly. I need to visit the gentleman's room. Hurry back, darling. Frost walked into the restroom, locked the door, and opened the window. It was a tight squeeze, but being a dragon shifter meant he had flexible bones when he wasn't in scale form. He climbed out onto the fire escape and dropped into the alleyway. Freedom, he exhaled. He couldn't go back to the mansion. Beatrice knew he was there. He couldn't go to the palace. He pulled up his collar and walked to the lower district of the city. He checked into the Sleepy Gnome, a hotel that smelled of cabbage and questionable decisions. Name, the bored goblin at the desk asked. Mr. Winter, Frost said, throwing a gold coin on the counter. I want a room with no mirrors and a lock that works. Meanwhile, Avi stood in the center of the Crystal Mansion's grand hall. It was midnight. She had arrived 2 hours ago. Beatrice had left her a list of demands that was 3 feet long, including make the air smell like success and install a fountain that dispenses champagne. This woman is deranged, Avi told the mirror, Gossip. Gossip displayed a text. She once fired a maid for breathing too loudly. Good luck, honey. Avi sighed and looked around. The house was beautiful, structurally. High vaulted ceilings, crystal chandeliers that were currently dark. But it was freezing. Literally inside, there was frost on the banisters. Okay, first step, heating grid, Avi muttered. She walked to the center of the room, where the magical nexus should be. She knelt down and brushed away a layer of dust. Underneath, stuck between the floorboards, was something glimmering. She picked it up. It was a scale, about the size of her palm, iridescent white and blue, harder than diamond. Whoa, Avi breathed. This isn't just a metaphor. The owner is an actual dragon. She looked at the scale, then at the frozen architecture. The design made sense now. The high ceilings were for flight clearance. The stone floors were to withstand claws. Beatrice wants to turn a dragon's lair into a Barbie dream house, Avi realized with horror. He's going to hate it. And if a dragon hates his house, he usually burns the architect. She stood up. New plan. We ignore Beatrice. We design for the dragon. She began to explore. She found the library untouched, thank God, the kitchen industrial-sized, and then, behind a heavy tapestry on the ground floor, she found a hidden door. It wasn't locked. She pushed it open. Inside was a massive chamber dominated by a pool of dark water. Floating in the water were clusters of crystals that hummed with a low, melodic vibration. Singing crystals, Avi whispered.
Rare.
Expensive. Extremely magical. She walked to the edge of the pool. The air here was thick with residual magic. She reached out to touch one of the crystals.
Zap.
The moment her finger brushed the crystal, a vision exploded in her mind. She didn't see the cold room anymore. She saw what the room was supposed to be. She saw a tropical oasis. The water was warm and steaming. Vines of lush greenery hung from the ceiling. The crystals cast a warm, golden light, mimicking a sunset. It was a place of ultimate relaxation, a hot spring in the middle of winter. He misses the heat, Avi realized, pulling her hand back. He's an ice dragon, but he craves the contrast. He wants a sanctuary. She looked at the cold, dead room. She checked her own magical reserves. She was a strong artificer, but this was a massive job. Okay, Gossip, she said to the mirror. Record this. I'm about to do something stupid. Gossip, my favorite kind of activity. Abby pulled out her wand and her bag of mana dust. She began to draw complex rune circles around the pool. She tied the singing crystals into the house's dormant heating grid. She wove a spell of illusion and transmutation, pouring every ounce of her energy into the matrix. "Let there be heat," she cried, slamming her hand onto the activator rune. A pulse of golden light swept through the room, then the house. The ice on the walls evaporated. The air turned balmy. The water in the pool began to bubble and steam. Illusionary vines sprouted from the stone, blooming with impossible flowers.
It worked.
It was magnificent. It was also too much. Avi's knees buckled. Her mana core was drained dry. She stumbled toward a pile of velvet cushions Beatrice had discarded in the corner. "Just a 5-minute nap," she mumbled. She collapsed onto the cushions, instantly asleep. The next evening, Frost was in a foul mood. He had spent the day hiding in the Goblin Hotel, eating stale bread. His mirror vibrated. It was the Chief of Shadows, the head of the King's intelligence. "Your Grace." The chief's voice was raspy. "We have intel. Lady Beatrice has been seen purchasing binding salts and inquiring about love totems on the black market. She plans to trap you." "Of course she does," Frost sighed. "We are monitoring her. But be careful at the mansion. She has hired a contractor who has been inside for 24 hours. We detected a massive magical surge last night." "A surge?" Frost frowned. "Did she blow up the house?" "Unknown. The energy signature was warm." Frost hung up. He had to go check. If Beatrice had destroyed his ancestral home, he would freeze her assets, literally. He waited until nightfall, then approached the crystal mansion from the sky, shifting into his partial form, human but with wings. He landed silently on the balcony of the hidden pool room. It was his private sanctuary, the one place he hoped Beatrice hadn't found. He tried the door. Unlocked. He stepped inside and stopped dead. The air was tropical. It smelled of jasmine and hot springs. The pool was steaming. The lighting was a soft, golden glow that eased the constant headache he got from the harsh winter glare. It was exactly how he had always imagined it, but never had the time or skill to create. "What in the realms?" he whispered. He scanned the room. There, curled up on a mountain of cushions near the water, was a small figure. He approached silently. It was a girl. She was deeply asleep, her dark hair fanned out over a purple pillow. She was wearing oversized work overalls covered in rune chalk dust. A small line of drool was making its way onto the velvet. Frost tilted his head. It was the girl from the street, the jaywalker with the big brown eyes. She looked exhausted. He could feel the residual magic fading from her skin. She had poured everything she had into this room. For him, he knelt beside her. She looked peaceful and dangerously cute. "Who are you, little mage?" he murmured. Abby stirred. Her nose twitched. She opened her eyes. For a second, she stared at him blankly. Then, recognition hit. "Frozen ocean eyes," she shrieked. She scrambled backward, tangling her legs in the cushions. She flailed, knocking over a pedestal. One of the heavy singing crystals toppled off and landed squarely on her foot.
Crunch. Ow.
Abby screamed. The pain was sharp and immediate. Between the mana, exhaustion, the shock of waking up to a dragon duke, and the throbbing toe, her brain decided it had had enough. Her eyes rolled back, and she slumped forward, fainting dead away. Frost caught her before she hit the floor. "Fantastic," he muttered. He checked her foot. It was bruising rapidly. He needed to heal it, and he needed to wake her up. He didn't have any potions. He only had his own raw magic. "This is going to feel weird," he warned the unconscious girl. He placed his hand over her heart to transfer energy. He pushed a pulse of his potent, draconic magic into her system to jumpstart her reserves and heal the injury. But Frost forgot one crucial detail. He was an ice dragon. She was a human mage. When raw dragon magic hits a depleted human core, it doesn't just fill the tank. It overfills it. And because his magic was opposite to her natural alignment, it acted less like a battery charge and more like 5 shots of espresso mixed with vodka. Avi's eyes snapped open. They were glowing with a faint blue light. She didn't just wake up. She launched herself upright. "I am alive," she yelled. She looked at her hands. "I feel sparkly." "Do you feel sparkly? Why is the room spinning?"
Frost pulled back, alarmed. "Easy."
"You're suffering from magical saturation. You need to sit down."
"Seat."
"Who needs to sit when we can fly?" Avi scrambled to her feet. She grabbed Frost by the lapels of his expensive coat and yanked him down to her level. "You're the dragon. You're the big, bad, frosty duke." "I am," Frost said, trying to pry her fingers off. "And you are intoxicated on mana." "I am not," she giggled, poking his chest. "I am just enthusiastic. You have very nice buttons. Are they real silver? Can I eat them?" "No," Frost said firmly. "You cannot eat my buttons." "I'm hungry," she declared. She began rummaging through his pockets. "Do you have snacks?" "Dragons always have snacks. Or gold." "I'll take gold." "Stop that," Frost said, batting her hands away. He suddenly remembered the box in his coat pocket, the reject box from the confectionery. He had kept a few of the spicy truffles and lollipops, forgetting to throw them out. "Aha!" Avi triumphed, pulling out a truffle wrapped in gold foil. "Chocolate." "Wait, don't," Frost started. Too late. Avi unwrapped it and popped the whole thing in her mouth. She chewed. She swallowed. Frost braced himself for the screaming. But Avi was currently surging with ice magic. The wasabi truffle was pure fire essence. Inside her body, the two opposing forces met. Avi froze. Her eyes went wide. "Oh," she whispered. "It's hot." "Spit it out," Frost ordered. "No," she said, looking at him with dilated pupils. The mixture of the high-octane magic and the intense spice was creating a reaction she couldn't control. She felt brave. Insanely brave. And she felt an overwhelming need to cool down the fire in her mouth. She looked at Frost. He was made of ice. He was cool. "You look tasty," she murmured. "Excuse me?" Avi lunged. She wrapped her arms around his neck and planted her lips firmly on his. Frost froze. He should have pushed her away. He should have frozen her to the wall. But the moment their lips met, a shockwave blasted through the room. Her mouth tasted like chocolate and fire. His tasted like mint and winter. The collision of hot and cold magic spiraled out of them.
Whoosh.
Snowflakes began to materialize in the air, swirling around them in a mini blizzard. The steam from the pool hissed. The crystals began to sing a crescendo. Frost's eyes fluttered shut. He groaned, a low dragon rumble, and kissed her back. It was chaotic, messy, and the most electrifying thing that had happened to him in a century. The snow flurries inside the room slowly settled, melting into the warm, tropical air of the pool chamber. The kiss ended, not because they wanted it to, but because physics and biology finally caught up with magic. Avi pulled back, gasping for air. Her eyes, previously glowing with that manic blue mana light, flickered and returned to their natural warm brown. The sparkle she had felt in her veins evaporated, leaving behind a crushing wave of sobriety. She blinked. She looked at the Duke's lapels, which she was currently gripping like a lifeline. She looked up at his face, flushed, eyes slightly widened, lips swollen. Then, the memory of the last 5 minutes crashed into her brain. You look tasty. The dancing. The demand to eat his buttons. Horror, cold and absolute, washed over her. "Oh no," Avi whispered. Her face turned a shade of red that rivaled a ripe tomato. "Oh, sweet weeping spirits. I just assaulted a duke." "Assault is a strong word," Frost said, his voice a low rumble. He sounded amused, though his breathing was still ragged. "I'd call it aggressive negotiation." "I kissed you," she squeaked. "I called you Morizenka. That means little ice cream in ancient Nordic." "I try to eat a button." Overwhelmed by mortification, Avi did the only logical thing. She released him, dropped to the floor, and Army crawled under the pile of plush velvet blankets she had been sleeping on. She pulled the top layer over her head, creating a cocoon of shame. "I am deceased," her muffled voice came from under the pile. "Please tell my mother I died, heroically fighting a goblin. Do not tell her I died of embarrassment after sexually harassing a dragon." Frost chuckled. It was a genuine sound, rusty from disuse but warm. He sat down on the floor next to the pile of blankets.
"Come out, Avi."
"You were magically intoxicated. In legal terms, you were under the influence of a Class A elemental surge and a very spicy truffle." "I am never coming out," the blanket grumbled. "I live here now. I am a dust mite." "That's a shame," Frost said, leaning back against the sofa. "Because I'm starving. And I was about to order from Luigi's levitating pizza. I was thinking double pepperoni and extra cheese. But if you're a dust mite, I suppose I'll eat it all myself." The blanket paused. A small hand snaked out from the folds. "Garlic crust?" the voice asked weakly. "Obviously," Frost replied. "I'm a dragon, not a savage." Avi slowly lowered the blanket, revealing just her eyes. "Okay. But we never speak of the little ice cream incident again." "Deal," Frost smiled. "Call me Frost." Frost, she tested the name. It felt forbidden and intimate.
"I'm Avi."
They sat on the floor of the tropical oasis room, eating pizza straight from the box while the magical mirror, Gossip, projected a crackling fireplace onto the wall for ambience. They talked for hours, not about politics or the ball but about structural engineering, the terrible fashion sense of the aristocracy, and why Frost preferred the mountains, fewer people, and why Avi preferred artifacts. They didn't talk back, usually. For the first time in years, the Crystal Mansion didn't feel like a frozen mausoleum. It felt like a home. Sunlight streamed through the enchanted glass ceiling. Avi woke up with a stiff neck, but a light heart. She stretched, realizing she had fallen asleep on the floor again. She turned her head and froze. Frost was asleep next to her. He was lying on his back, still wearing his expensive trousers and shirt, though the top buttons were undone. His silver hair was messy, falling over his forehead, softening his sharp features. He looked younger, less like the terrifying ice death the newspapers described. Avi bit her lip to suppress a giggle. He was snoring, very softly, like a cat purring.
She couldn't resist.
She reached into her pocket for her communication stone, which had a camera function.
Click.
She took a selfie with a sleeping Duke in the background. In the first one, she gave a thumbs up. In the second, she made a ridiculous stuck face. In the third, she pretended to poke his nose. "If you post those," a sleepy voice murmured, "I will have to freeze your phone." Avi yelped and dropped the stone. Frost opened one eye, a smirk playing on his lips. "Good morning, paparazzi," he drawled. "I was documenting the renovation progress." Avi lied, scrambling up. "You were part of the landscape."
"Mom."
Frost sat up, stretching his arms. The movement made his shirt tighten across his chest, and Avi politely looked at the ceiling.
Buzz. Buzz. Buzz.
The peaceful morning shattered. Beatrice's gold-rimmed mirror, which Avi had left on a side table, began to vibrate violently. "The Duke!" Beatrice's voice shrieked from the glass. "Why isn't he answering his mirror? Is the house ready? I am coming over in 10 minutes to inspect. If there is a single speck of dust, I will have you expelled, you little urchin." Avi paled. The panic of the deadline rushed back. "Oh gods, she's coming. The hallway isn't finished, and the curtains." Frost reached out and snatched the mirror from the table. He stared into the glass with a look of cold fury.
"Beatrice," he said.
His voice was calm, but the temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees instantly. "Duke Frost." Beatrice's voice changed from shrill to sickly sweet in a nanosecond. "Darling, I didn't know you were there. I was just motivating the help." "The help is a highly skilled artificer who is currently my guest," Frost said sharply. "You will speak to her with respect, or you will not speak at all. Do not come here. We are busy. I will see you at the ball tomorrow night." Not a moment sooner. He swiped his hand over the glass, terminating the call.
Avi stared at him, wide-eyed.
You defended me. She's a harpy, Frost shrugged, handing the mirror back. Now, didn't she mention something about curtains? I have strong opinions on velvet. The rest of the day was a blur of domestic chaos. With the pressure of Beatrice gone, they worked together. Frost used his levitation magic to hang heavy tapestries, while Avi tuned the magical lighting to perfect warm hues. They argued, playfully. Blue, Frost insisted, holding up a swatch. It's calming. It's cold, Avi countered, holding up a warm amber. This is a home, not an igloo. We need warmth. Trust the professional. Fine, Frost grumbled, but he was smiling. Amber it is. They moved furniture, dusted chandeliers, and polished silver. By evening, the mansion was transformed. It wasn't the gaudy pink nightmare Beatrice had wanted. It was elegant, cozy, and magical, a perfect blend of Frost's regal history and Avi's warm, chaotic energy. As the sun set, they stood in the center of the grand hall. It was perfect. We did good, Avi said, wiping a smudge of dirt from her cheek. You did good, Frost corrected. He turned to her, his expression turning serious. He reached out and gently tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear. His fingers lingered on her cheek. Avi,
Ping.
His personal mirror vibrated. He glanced at it and sighed, his shoulders sagging. It's the king, Frost said, his voice heavy. An emergency council meeting before the ball. I have to go. Go. Avi smiled, though her chest tightened. The house is ready. I'll just do some final checks and head home. No, Frost said intensely. Wait for me. I'll be back as soon as I can. We need to talk. About us. He leaned down and kissed her forehead. It was a chaste kiss, but it burned with promise. Stay here. He turned and strode out into the night, shifting into his dragon form as soon as he cleared the terrace, launching himself toward the palace with a powerful beat of wings. Avi watched him go, touching her forehead. Okay, I'll stay. 10 minutes later, the front doors burst open. It wasn't Frost. Lady Beatrice swept in, followed by 4 large bodyguards and a floating camera drone. She looked like a predator who smelled blood. Well, she sneered, looking around the warm, amberlit hall. It's surprisingly adequate. You actually have taste. How annoying. The Duke said no visitors, Avi said, stepping back. The Duke is busy, Beatrice laughed cruelly. She pulled a folded newspaper from her clutch and threw it at Avi. Avi caught it. The Herald Evening Edition. Headline, Official. Duke Frostio announce engagement to Lady Beatrice at tomorrow's ball. Avi's stomach dropped. This is fake. Is it? Beatrice smirked. The king wants it. I want it. Frost does what he is told. You were just a distraction, little mouse. A bit of fun while he renovated my future house. Beatrice snapped her fingers. 2 bodyguards brought in large crates. Now, Beatrice commanded. Before I kick you out, you have one last job. Install these. She pointed to the crates. The guards opened them, revealing 5 statues. They were gargoyles, but not the protective kind. These were carved from black voidstone, their faces twisted in agony, their eyes hollow pits. Weeping gargoyles. Avi gasped. These are dark artifacts. They drain energy. Why would you want these in a home? Because they look gothic, Beatrice lied smoothly. Install them in the main hall.
Now.
Or I call the dean and tell him you stole the Duke's silverware. Say goodbye to your degree. Avi's hands shook. She had no choice. With a heavy heart, she used her wand to mount the hideous statues on the pillars surrounding the center of the room. As soon as they were set, the room felt colder. The amber light seemed to dim. Perfect, Beatrice clapped. Now get out. But my payment. Your payment was the privilege of breathing the same air as me, Beatrice hissed. Guards, remove the trash. Avi was grabbed by the arms and unceremoniously thrown out the front door. She landed on the cold pavement, the heavy oak doors slamming shut behind her. Broken, unpaid, and freezing, Avi stumbled through the city streets. She didn't go to her dorm. She went to the only place that made sense. She burst into Madame Zuzu's apartment. Zuzu, Abby sobbed. For once, Zuzu didn't try to read her aura. She saw the girl's distress, pulled her into a hug, and shoved a mug of hot cocoa into her hands. "He's getting married," Abby cried, recounting the story. "And she made me install these awful statues." "Hush," Zuzu said, rocking her. "Listen to me. Not to the newspaper. To your heart. What did you see in the cards?" "Frozen ocean eyes," Abby sniffled. "And what did you feel when you were with him?" "Warmth," Abby whispered. "He isn't cold. He's just lonely." "Then fight for him," Zuzu said. "And what about these statues? Describe them." "Black stone. Weeping faces. Arrange in a pentagram around the center of the room." Zuzu frowned. "That sounds like Aurora, call your friend. The jewelry maker. She knows dark stones." Abby grabbed her stone and called Lolo. "Lolo, listen. Black void stone gargoyles. 5 of them, facing inward." There was a silence on the line. Then Lolo screamed, "Abby, that's not decor. That's a soul cage. It's a forbidden binding ritual. If a dragon stands in the center of that circle and someone activates it, he'll be paralyzed. His will can be broken. Whoever holds the key can enslave him." Avi's blood ran cold. She's not trying to marry him, Abby realized, horror dawning on her. She's trying to enslave him. The king is forcing him to the house. Beatrice is waiting. She looked at the clock. Frost would be returning from the palace any minute. He was walking into a trap. "I have to go back," Abby said, standing up. Her sadness was gone, replaced by a fiery rage. "You need a weapon," Zuzu said, looking around. "I have incense." "No," Abby said, her eyes landing on the kitchen counter. She saw her grocery bag from yesterday. Inside was a large jar of cayenne pepper, a bottle of hot sauce, and a bag of black pepper. "I have everything I need," Abby said grimly. Time to spice things up. Abby ran. She ran until her lungs burned. She reached the Crystal Mansion just as a flash of red light erupted from the windows of the Grand Hall. "No," she screamed. The front door was locked. Abby didn't bother picking it. She slapped a structural instability rune on the lock, a trick she learned in her first year, and kicked it. The wood shattered. She burst into the hall. The scene was a nightmare. Frost was on his knees in the center of the room. Crimson webs of magic were shooting out of the 5 gargoyles, wrapping around his body like chains. He was roaring, trying to shift, but the magic forced him down, suppressing his dragon form. Beatrice stood before him, laughing. She held a heavy, iron collar in her hands. "Stop fighting, darling," she cooed. "Once this collar is on, you'll love me. You'll do everything I say. You'll be the perfect husband." "Beatrice." Frost grit out, his eyes glowing with pain. "You are insane." "I am ambitious," she corrected.